All right, so here we go. Impactful executive conversations. So for starters, I want to share kind of my view of success and what it takes to be successful in sales. And there's really three things in general that it takes in many regards. And the first thing is your attitude, your belief in yourself, your belief that you can have an impact on your clients, and your belief in terms of what's possible in sales. It starts between your ears. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about the second thing, which is your activity, where to focus and who to focus on. And the third is your skill. Those three things will determine how high you fly in the career of sales: your attitude, your activity, and your skill. And I hope today to give you a massive upgrade in all three areas. So before we dive in, I want to give you a little background in terms of who I am and why I'm here. I'm what you call a strategic account director at Salesforce. So my job is to carry the entire Salesforce bag. I carry all of the products and services that we sell, from things like Tableau to MuleSoft to our CRM product, which many people know, to our customer service products. I carry about 50 products in my bag. So my job is not necessarily to know everything, but rather to align with the senior executives at the top companies in our Fortune 500 largest enterprise accounts and sell them the entire suite. So in order to do that, I need to know how to have business conversations. This is something I do every single day. I don't claim to be a guru. I don't claim to be some master trainer. I am a sales rep through and through, first and foremost. So what you're hearing today is how I run my business and how I've been able to be successful. And I want to give you that disclaimer. So it might be different than what you've heard, but this is what's worked for me. Been at Salesforce for 8 years. I was very fortunate to finish #1 a few years ago in the entire Enterprise Select division, and followed that up by top 5 in FY19. But before I had that kind of success, I really struggled before I broke through. And I was grinding it out. I was really having a tough time trying to get to my number. And then everything changed when I started focusing on executive conversations. And now it's to the point where I'm actually teaching and leading a lot of other people. I run a small coaching business as a side hustle, and a lot of the internal trainings in Salesforce for our enterprise team I'm running as well. So it's great to bring the content here to you. Here's what we're going to focus on today. #1, we're going to show you how and where to spend your time and energy to get the greatest bang for your buck, the biggest impact. #2, we're going to talk about the mindset and what's needed to earn a seat at the big table. I'm going to help you draft a personalized message that's going to resonate with the C-suite. And most importantly, we're going to talk about what to do when you get into that meeting. How do you show up with confidence? How do you show up with the right energy? How are you able to build connections quickly, true connections, not false, superficial connections, but powerful, authentic connections with executives? And one of my mentors once told me, save the best for first. When you're doing a presentation, don't make them wait until the very end. So I wanted to give you some nuggets early on before we dive into some deep content. And I tell you, this is going to be some deep content. We're going to go very deep on this. So make sure you're taking notes. Make sure you're, if you don't have a notepad in front of you, get your phone out and use that notepad, but write a lot of this down because it does work. The key to my success is not to be interesting, but to be interested. And you become interesting to others when you are interested in others. When I'm meeting with executives, when I'm spending time with them, I am not talking about myself or my products or my services. I'm talking about their business. Why? Because I don't know everything about every product I sell. I don't know how the API integration platform works for MuleSoft, but I know when a client has an integration need, and I know what it means to not have applications talk to each other and the impact that can have on business. So my job is not necessarily to talk about products and services, but to understand the challenges that customers are facing and take an interest in what's most important to them. Executives and human beings in general love to talk about themselves. So if you want to get people to like you, to trust you, to want to work with you, show up and be interested in them first rather than trying to impress them with what you say and what you know. If you take nothing else away from this presentation, take that. People become interested in you when you are interested in them first. So let's take a step back and talk about where to focus our time and the mindset needed for top performance. In order for me to kind of give you a little context of how we got here, I want to talk about my journey in my first 4 years at Salesforce. Before I came over to Salesforce, I worked at a company called Ricoh, and we sold copiers and printers. And for all practical purposes, I had a lot of success at Ricoh. I finished #1 for many years in a row. I had 5 promotions in 5 years, and I hit my quota 42 months in a row. In terms of the Ricoh world, I was a celebrity and my ego was through the roof. And so what I thought when I left, I had 70 sales reps and 10 teams. We were running about a $60 million business when I left. And I thought I can go anywhere and just apply the same cadence and activity standards at Ricoh that would lead me to success in Salesforce. And boy, was I in for a surprise. My first 4 years at Salesforce, these may look like great numbers, but they're not by Salesforce standards. My first year, I got pretty lucky. I found a very big deal. I brought in a bunch of my own leaders, kind of let them drive the sales cycle and got credit. And that further inflated my ego. And then I was in for a big surprise. In the year FY15, I missed my quota and I followed it by not even hitting 50% of my quota. And I thought to myself, you know what? There's got to be something wrong with my territory. There's got to be something wrong with my manager. There's got to be something wrong outside of me because I'm Ian Koniak and I can do no wrong. And so I decided to change teams and I went into the commercial team where I would have more at-bats. And I thought I just need to get more at-bats and more practice. And that year in FY17, on January 31st, I was 1 deal away from hitting my quota. And I remember I got a call in the morning and the president of a company, president of sales and the CFO of the company called and said, we approved your deal. Come on into the office. Our CEO just wants to talk to you for a few minutes before signing off. And this was a 200K deal. It was going to put me at 120%. And I had busted my ass all year to get to that point. So I was feeling good. I'm like, yes, I knew it. It wasn't me. It was just my territory. And I show up at the office and the president makes me wait, or the CEO makes me wait outside their office for about an hour. My meeting was at 1 o'clock. So she sees me at 2 and go over the presentation. She says, everything looks good. I'm like, can you sign? Here's the paperwork. She's like, I have to make 1 phone call, wait outside. Keeps me outside another 2 hours. Calls me back in around 5 o'clock and says, Ian, I'm sorry to say, but we cannot do this deal. And I was like, why? What's going on? She's like, well, I had to call our parent company in China and I found that they have a global CRM initiative and it sounds a little bit like what you're proposing. And we have to do our diligence to make sure there's not overlap because we don't want to duplicate efforts. And I said, you know what? That's not good enough. I've worked all year. You got to run your own business. This is ridiculous. Like, what do we have to do to close the deal? And I was really aggressive. And she's like, you got to convince the CIO. And so I called the CIO, somehow tracked down his number in China and got a voicemail, kept calling and calling. And finally, around 10 o'clock that night, now keep in mind, the CEO has the DocuSign and said, if you can get the CIO to say yes on the phone, I'll sign the deal. So we still had a couple hours until the close of our fiscal. Around 10 o'clock at night, the CIO picks up and he says, Ian, I'm on vacation with my family. Stop calling. This isn't how I work. Click. And I remember having the biggest migraine, the biggest pulsing headache of my life because I had missed my number for a 3rd straight year. And at that moment, I said, something has to change. Maybe it is me. Maybe I'm the one who's the problem and not my accounts, not my territory. And so that propelled me on this journey of growth and self-development, and really taking a beginner's mind to learn as much as I could and into how to properly sell enterprise software. And the past 4 years have been, well, the past 3 years have been nothing short of just amazing. I've finished over plan for 3 consecutive years, and I will be over plan again this year, even though I had a baby and was out for 3 months and have a side business and have so much going on. I still have been able to hit my plan now 4 years in a row. And I've averaged, my ACV has tripled in those times. So today I'm going to share with you exactly what changed and how you can change as well to get to that top tier performance. The biggest thing that changed is when I was grinding, when I was scraping and clawing to get my number, I was spending a little bit of time with a lot of smaller opportunities and a lot of people at that departmental level. And that led me to missing my number. And I shifted to spending a lot of time, but with fewer people at a higher level at the C-suite, focused on much larger opportunities. And I'm pleased to share, 2 of the past 4 years, I've been able to clear 7 figures. And my W-2 in those first 4 years was about 241, which may sound great, but for enterprise software at Salesforce, it's pretty average. To tripling my income and averaging in the past 4 years over $700,000, which has enabled me to really fulfill some of my wildest dreams, to purchase real estate, to have my dream home, to have, so my wife doesn't have to work. I can take care of my family. We can travel anywhere we want. It's given me such a luxurious lifestyle, but not just that, it's given me confidence. It's given me, the power to go out and help other people because I believe in myself now. And so if you look at kind of where I was initially, it was in this world of transactional sales, and I shifted to strategic sales. And so strategic sales, the big difference is transactional, you're focused on a lot more deals, but lower ACV. And if you're average at Salesforce, we have about a $2 million quota on average, and our average deal size in the enterprise is about 200,000. So I have to go and sell 10 deals to get to quota and sell a lot of incremental products. And it's really about that short game. It's about, getting the deal over the finish line, and that positions you more as a vendor. Whereas strategic sales, you're focused on much fewer deals, but they're larger ACV in nature. And really, it makes sense. Instead of having to hit 10 deals to hit your number, you can sell 2 deals that are $1 million and hit the same number. And the reality is that those deals take the same amount of time. A $200K deal still requires a business case, an architecture plan, an implementation plan, pretty much the same amount of time, but your payoff is a lot less. The larger deals, when you get to 7-figure, the big difference is you're not focused on selling incremental products. You're focused on solving large problems for not the short term, but the long term. And that positions you as a trusted advisor. And so the other big difference is when you're selling lower to departments, they have to go a lot of places for approval. They have to go and sell up internally. Whereas if you're selling at the top, they have immediate access to budget. The reality is a lot of people tell you don't have budget. If they tell you that, they're probably lower in the organization. The high executives will say, if the project is important and has a strong ROI, we will find budget. We will shift budget from other areas. We will make it work. So by selling at that top level, you're actually compressing your sales cycle. So the question is how? How do you get a seat at the big table? And that's what I'm going to talk about for the rest of this particular talk. If you're sitting in the left side in that tiny little dingy conference room with no windows, you're not talking to the right person. Where you want to be is the big room. And that's where the VPs and the C-suite meets. And that's where their EAs will put their guest meetings as well. You want to be in their big office, on their side conference room table inside of the office, or in the conference room. And so the next part of what we'll talk about is really how to get there. And it starts with your mindset. And something I hear a lot of times is, I am afraid I am afraid to call into the C-suite. The number one reason people don't sell into the C-suite is not because they aren't necessarily good or can't hold a conversation. It's because they don't call in the first place, because they're intimidated to reach out high up because maybe they don't want to piss off their champion, or maybe more commonly, they feel like they don't have value to bring to an executive at that level. And so if you want to change your results and actually begin to sell at this level, you have to start by first changing your mindset. And that's what matters most, because if you're afraid to make the call, right, then you're never going to have the opportunity to sell at that level. And so the mindset number one that you need to take on is, I face my fears head on because there's nothing to lose. At the end of the day, you lose when you don't try. You lose when you don't give it a shot. So you got to go and do the thing that you're afraid of. And once you do, that fear is gone. I promise you, the more conversations you have with executives, the more you're going to feel comfortable talking to executives, and the more you're going to hit yourself for saying, why didn't I do this sooner? This is a lot easier than I thought. Because executives in general are equal to you, and they are down to earth. You know when I get the runaround from people is when I'm talking to people that are only concerned about their own silo. Executives will tell you openly and directly what they want, what they need, what they're working on, because they are so busy that their time they want to maximize in meetings and not beat around the bush. And so it takes, instead of putting them on a pedestal and thinking they're above you, you have to see yourself as an equal. Once I saw myself as an equal to an executive, once I actually saw that I could help solve their biggest challenges, that this was a person just like me, they were no different. And at the end of the day, we all put our pants on the same way, and stop putting them on a pedestal. I could just forget about myself, forget about my worry, and start focusing on them. Start focusing on their business, their success, their goals, their aspirations. But when I was too afraid in my own head, or when I was putting them on this pedestal, I was too worried about how I was perceived to even think about what they cared about and take an interest in them. So you have to see yourself as an equal. And once you actually start hanging out with them, you'll realize, you know what? This person is as down to earth as anyone. If they didn't, they wouldn't have gotten where they are. People get promoted because they're people, they're good with people, and they're personable, and they're charismatic many times. And that's what got them to this point. And we're in sales. We're also usually, most of us, extroverted, charismatic, and in general, we like spending time with people. So I found I've clicked a lot better with executives who are straight shooters than I have with other types of people that might not be, I consider myself executive in my company. I run a team of 20 plus people. I manage a $20 million ARR, and I work for the world's largest enterprise software CRM platform. So it's like, you got to know that your company, wherever you work, it could be a startup, it could be a large company like Salesforce, but whatever you work, you have value to bring. You as a person have value to bring, and your company has value to bring to them. So stop worrying about how you're perceived or what value you can bring, and start focusing on what problems you can solve, which is the third area that is key to success with mindset, which is approach each customer with the idea of helping them solve a problem or achieve a goal, and not selling a product or service. The big shift that I made is I am happy to walk away. If I feel like I can't help somebody solve a problem, I'm happy to say, sounds like you're doing great. Let's agree to part ways. Is there anyone else I can work with in other areas? And I'll try and get a referral, but I'm fine. If they don't want my help or feel like they need my help, I'm away. But what I found is that 100% of people I talk to, and I mean that, 100% of people I talk to at the executive level, if I do a good job with my discovery, there is something we can help them with. And if they truly don't want help, that's fine, because you don't want to work with people who don't want to work with you. And so I care more about your success than my commission. And that might be a hard pill to swallow for us in sales, because a lot of us are money motivated. That's what drives a lot of success in sales. But at the executive level, you do not want to have that commission breath, okay? If you want to really get execs to open up with you, to share their concerns or their challenges, they have to first know that you care about them more than they care about selling your products and services. And so the rest of the presentation, we're going to talk about how to show execs that you care about them. And when you're focused on helping others get what they want, you get what you want. With my coaching business, with my speaking business, I give with no expectation of receiving, and I receive in abundance because people get value. And it's the exact same thing in sales. When you give with no expectation to executives, when you give knowledge, when you give a point of view, when you give insights to help them solve problems with no expectations, they will want to work with you. So if you really want to focus on becoming a great salesperson, you got to focus first on becoming a great person who cares about your customers. And that is the biggest shift that I made, is I started to care more about them than my commissions. And guess what? My commissions actually benefited from caring about them first. And so the rest of the talk, keep loading your questions in. I'm going to go till 8:45 and then we'll take questions. But the rest of this talk, I'm going to give you some hard skills and techniques and strategies that I use to crack into the C-suite and to have a great, impactful meeting with the C-suite. So the number one, show executives you care, is not through small talk, not through finding common interests, like what college did you go to, or what sports teams are you interested in, or how's the weather. But yet that's what most salespeople do. They go up and they show up with this small talk thinking that's going to build rapport. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't mean anything. Talk is cheap. If you want to show executives your care, you have to show them with action. And action starts with personalization. Okay? Personalization is what matters most to executives. They want to know that you understand who they are, that you've done your diligence before you ever step foot in the door, that you know about their company, that you know about their goals. And personalization starts with research. There's 3 types of research you can do before. And please keep in mind, if you have a territory of 500 accounts and you're in the SMB space, this might not be practical to do for every account. But if you want to sell to your largest customers, pick 5. Pick 5 top customers, pick 10 top customers, depending on the size of your territory, and start with them. You cannot do this for every account. You need to do this for your big bets, your largest accounts. Now, I only manage 2 accounts. So for me, I have to do this, again, because I sell 50 products into 2 very, very large accounts with lots of subsidiaries, lots of divisions. But depending on the territory, again, you might not have as much time to do research. For me, this is essential. So there's the company research, which is just learning what the company does, going on their website, looking at the products and services they sell, looking at any news or press releases, what's their mission and vision, who's their executive team, just taking 10 minutes to actually look at their company and read about them. But today we're going to talk about the individual research, which is as, if not more important than the company research. So before I ever reach out to an executive, I stalk them on every form possible. So I'll go into their LinkedIn profile and I'll see everything they've posted on, everything they've commented on. I'll also Google them and I'll see, have they been in any kind of live interviews, or have they appeared on a podcast or a YouTube video? Have they appeared in any news articles? And I will take notes on what they're saying and why they're saying it. I will basically grab things that are relevant. So if they say, for example, they're trying to launch a new product within the next 6 months, right? I know that my value proposition when I reach out is, how can we accelerate the launch of your new product? Or if they say we're trying to be more agile as a company, I know we might be able to, introduce technology that helps make them work faster and smarter and more efficiently. So it's not just to research like what they're doing per se, it's to research what they're saying and then link it to your product and service and make the personalization that you reach out to very relevant so that they respond. Then you share your point of view, which is really take the research and map it to where your company can help. Are there other customers who've already done the thing that they want to do that you can reference or share a success story with us, and then put together your point of view? Why now? and why Salesforce, or why whatever your company is. In other words, link whatever they said to how you can help. An impactful executive conversation starts before you ever meet. And the quality of your outreach, the quality of your message will determine the caliber of your conversation. So if you reach out with a generic message that doesn't tell them who they are, what's unique about them, why you want to meet, then you're going to get a generic meeting, which is not going to drive success. And so today I'm going to share with you the template that I've used in the past, I would say 4 years, that has gotten me meetings with CEOs, COOs, CFOs, you name it, I've met with them. In fact, every week I'm meeting with different C-suite executives up to this point. This is the last week in our fiscal year, and I have many existing deals that I'm literally at the finish line with, and they're at the CFO level. So I still have to do this constantly. But for this template, it's really that first outreach that you want to get in. This is for companies where you're selling at a mid-level or maybe a lower level and you want to get higher up. Here's how to do it. You are warm and you give a referral. Say who you work with at their company, or just ideally you want to stay what department you work with and give them a little bit of insight. If you don't work with them, you could say what other companies you work with that are similar to them. You want to make it personal, okay? Give them a compliment based on the research you've done, and share the link to where you got that research. Identify their problem, how we can help, and what the outcome your company thinks you can deliver, and ask for time to meet, and finally make it easy to book the meeting. So this is kind of the template that I use for my outreach. And I'll just give you a quick example of a meeting I sent earlier this year to a chief customer officer. And, we were having trouble getting to her. And so what I did, and I remember this, it was a Saturday, and I didn't feel like doing it, but I found that she was on a podcast. And so I took the time to listen to the podcast, which was almost an hour, and took notes and just grabbed some of the key things she said. And this was my message. Hope you're well. I had a chance to listen to your episode of the podcast, and so much you said resonated with how I approach my career. I was particularly moved by your approach to fighting breast cancer, tackling it head on like you do so many other challenges in business and in life. I could also relate to what you shared about your husband keeping you grounded, as my wife does the same for me. You also talked about goal setting, and I'm redacting the information for the client out of privacy, but then I link it to my request. You talked about goal setting. I'd love to have a one-on-one video call to hear about your goals as CCO for the remainder of 2020 and beyond. My role includes oversight of all things Salesforce, and we haven't had a chance to talk much about your vision for customer support yet. Feel free to choose a time slot. So here's how I followed the template. I made it personal, talked about how I listened to the episode. I gave her a compliment. I shared the link to the research. I asked for time, and I made it easy to book. I always embed a widget to make it easy for them to book time so that we don't have to go back and forth on calendars. You can do that with Calendly. You can do it with Salesforce Inbox, but having a little widget to insert for them to book time is a huge game changer for getting meetings. So she responded right away, got a meeting, and again, up-leveled in that account. Here's another example of an outreach to a COO when I've had to go over my champion's head because my champion just wasn't getting it done. And so I put, my name's Ian Koniak, and this is a longer one. Again, this is something, some people say keep it short and simple. I don't, right? I don't. I try to show them that I've done my research, reference it, make it personal, and then make my ask short and simple. But sometimes it takes a longer note, and these things do get read if they're thought out and relevant to the client. So I said, I manage this account for Salesforce. I've been working, and I referenced the people I'm working with over the past years and wanted to reach out to get your input on the project, which might be of interest given the impact of coronavirus. Before I get into details, I want to congratulate you on having a new baby. Keep it personal. As Blank mentioned, you're out of paternity. My wife's also pregnant and due in July. Hopefully your family's safe, happy, and healthy amidst all the craziness around us. So I made it personal. I kept it authentic. And now I start to compliment. I love the culture you've built, and especially your focus on providing the best workplace experience to employees to ensure they're happy and can best serve customers. The project we've been working on is to use Salesforce as a global intranet and collaboration platform to provide your teammates with an incredible digital experience that complements the differentiated workplace experience, which you've already spoken to in this video. So this guy had a whole video about having empathy for his people and how their workplaces create an environment of fun and empathy and collaboration. And now they're about to shut all their offices. So that's the problem. If COVID is forcing you to work from home now, which basically rips your culture in half, this platform can be especially valuable as the system provides an effective way to streamline communications, set up collaboration, and distribute news for what's relevant globally, regionally, at the site level to ensure employees are safe and connected. So I share the problem, the point of view. Now I go and throw my champion under the bus, which I don't advise doing unless your champion's not getting it done, unless they're really not a champion at all. Because if they're a true champion, they're getting you access to power, they're working with you. If they're not, and they're just like not ghosting you and not working with you, that's when it's time to up level and get to someone else. So I put the champion shared this is not a priority, which is why I wanted to touch base with you and discuss where Salesforce can help the most during these turbulent times. My experience has been that IT will typically focus efforts where the business is requesting. So I wanted to get this on your radar to see if it's a priority and you can sponsor internally. I had lunch with X last month. I actually had lunch with their president when he was in town, and he recommended that I connect you with you directly. Even the president said, you got to go everything to the COO. He's the decision maker. So I put, I'm sensitive to the fact you're likely in emergency response mode, but if you do have time, I'd like to set up a 30-minute call. He writes back to me right away. He says, I have time at 6 p.m. today. I have 5 minutes. I call him up. We end up talking for an hour. He says, Ian, I love what you're sharing. I love everything you said. I want you to send me videos in the key areas that you're recommending. I went on our company demo page, looked for videos. I couldn't find anyone. So I went and made the videos myself and completely showed him all the ways we were going to help their teams collaborate and connect and engage in a digital world. Crickets, nothing. Doesn't get back to me for 2 weeks. Here's another place where people fail is they reach out once, twice, 3 times, and they stop. And my philosophy on follow-up is just because somebody doesn't get back to you, it doesn't mean they're not interested. It just means they're busy. If you know you can help, it's your obligation to follow up as many times as needed, especially when you've earned it. Always mix follow-up across emails and text. So I followed up once with email, once with text. I left 2 voicemails, and he writes back a couple weeks later. He says, finally, got a chance to go with your videos. Thank you. I appreciate it. He's crazy moving everyone from call centers into work from home. So I understand he's busy, but like I said, doesn't mean he's not interested. You've got to stand with people. Here's the money shot. He says, I've been executive sponsor for a work from home project that kicked off a couple weeks ago in phase 2. We're evaluating solutions that's now upon us. Blank is the project manager. Blank is the lead for corporate applications. I've added them here so we can scope in your proposed solutions. I know what you're thinking, but this will be moving quite fast. This came from a COO. They will be able to give you more detail on timelines, but since you and I haven't worked together, trust me, I move quickly. If you're able to be competitive in pricing, as we discussed, this could turn fast. Okay? That company went ahead and purchased 20,000 licenses for all of their employees to collaborate, to connect, to issue tickets, and they moved their legacy intranet over to Salesforce. And so the stuff works. The last part of what I want to cover before we get into Q&A is how to build powerful executive connections. So I've talked a lot about the mindset, the outreach, the message. Now it's about what do you do when you're in the meeting? And so the key to an effective meeting is to prepare. Just like I prepared for this presentation. I've been preparing for literally weeks and practicing on this presentation so that you guys could have the best experience listening to it and get the most value. Well, that's the same type of preparation that you want to do when you have a big shot and a big meeting. You want to make sure you're prepared with your discovery questions. And so the biggest goal of discovery is to find out their biggest problem or their biggest challenge that they're focused on solving right now. And so these are some questions that I ask in meetings to help get to the problem. And it starts with just, what are you focused on this year? What are your top priorities? Don't think about your product or service and ask questions specific to that. Think about what they care about. And if it's something you can help with, great. And if it's not, that's okay too. But that's where you start to build a rapport and the connection is when you start asking about them, not talking about yourself. So what are you focused on? Then ask them why. Why is this important? These are open-ended questions. So here's your priorities. Here's why it's important. Then this is the key. You shift to the challenges. What is the biggest challenge you're faced with right now that's stopping you from hitting these goals? What are you trying to solve for? And then instead of just letting them, a lot of reps make this mistake. They'll hear the challenge and they'll say, click, that's my product. And they'll jump into how they can help. That is the worst thing you can do, is when they're talking, think about how you can help and what you're going to say next. Instead of doing that, take a pause, take a breath, and ask them to elaborate further. Ask them, why is that a challenge? Ask them, what is that challenge doing to your business? What's the impact of that challenge? And if you're able to solve this challenge, what would that mean? What could that do for your business? And what would it do for you personally, right? This meeting is an hour right here, just listening and asking questions. And at the end, once I've gotten all this information, then I can come with a plan. Then I can give them perspective. By that time, they've already shared, and they're literally psychologically hungry for help because they're just spewing all their pain points and challenges. And it's embarrassing when they say it out loud. So just the simple act of getting them to open up is really, really impactful. Okay. Then I start asking, okay, what's your plan? How are you thinking about solving this? And what's your timeline for solving this? I also ask them, how did you get here? You know, what's the reason for this challenge? Help me understand like how we got to this place. And then I shift to next steps, right? It's okay, great. If we were able to solve this, I'm curious, you know, have you ever brought a new platform or application into your company? And what did that look like? Now, this one, I'm doing the smell test. I'm smelling to see if they have power. Just because they have a title doesn't always mean they have power. So you want to find the change agent in the organization. You want to find the person who's not afraid to, to piss people off, that is got a personal reason for doing something, and they are brought to make change. A new executive or somebody who's moved to a new position is a great candidate for this type of change agent, not someone who's necessarily been there forever that might have put in the process or system that's not working, right? And then you really want to find out, okay, these executives are busy. The reality is sometimes it takes months between meetings to get on their calendar. So who is your lieutenant? Who are your colonels and generals that we can work with on your team to dive deeper? I promise you, if you just focus on asking these questions or questions similar, you will get executives to open up. You will get people that really are interested, because no one's asking this. People are pitching their products. They're doing demos. No one's asking about their business, but that's what actually builds the connections. So some tips for making really, really impactful meeting. Number one is just be prepared. Like I said, know your agenda and know your desired outcomes going in. What is the goal of this meeting? Is it to get executive sponsorship for a project? Is it to get them to introduce you to their entire groups? If I'm meeting with the CEO, I want to find out, what are the key areas that they're focused on, and get sponsorship to meet with the key executives who run those divisions, so that I can, do some deep diligence, because my sales cycles could be 6 to 12 months. So know your outcomes. You want to get intel on the exec. You want to find out if anyone's worked with them at your company. You want to find out if anyone in your network has connections with them on LinkedIn. You want to find out if any sales reps in the past who covered the account might have worked with them. So get that intel. Send the agenda before the meeting. Validate if it's what they want to cover. So I always, before I have a meeting, here's what we're going to cover. Is this it? Or are there other areas you want to focus on? Most of the time, you'll nail the agenda. They don't tell you they want to cover other things, but it just shows professionalism. Visualize success. Before you go and see and feel yourself nailing that meeting. The power of belief, the power of visualization. I'm a big believer in that. And, just if you don't think you're going to be successful, odds are you won't. So believe it and visualize it before you go in. I always try to share a point of view on where I think we can help. I don't just go in and spit questions out to begin with. I say, hey, I've done this research. I saw these areas. I think that we can help you in these areas, but I'd love to kind of find out, is this a priority to you? And tell me more about it. What are the challenges? And that's kind of how I open up. You need to be prepared to kind of share where and how you think you can help before just grilling them with questions, right? That's what helps establish a rapport, because that's what demonstrates that you've done your research and you're coming in with the point of view that potentially may be right, and it might not be right. And you can say that, this might not be exactly what you're focused on, but I've done a lot of research and I think we can help in these areas. I'd love to get your feedback. You want to keep it conversational. So the best meetings with executives for me, I might have a deck prepared. In fact, I usually do, but I don't necessarily use the deck, right? I like to keep it conversational. I like to turn off the sharing of the deck. And, you know, when we're really talking, just focus in and try and listen to them, and not, because when you're focused on a deck, sometimes you are literally just, you know, trying to get through the deck. And so the better conversations I have, the best conversations, I don't even have a deck. I'm just listening and trying to get to know them and talk about them rather than pushing my particular agenda. Discovery should take the bulk of the meeting, and that's really important, right? Get to their why. You, if nothing else, you want to find out why they have this particular initiative, why they care about this so much, right? If you find out their why, you have a big sale. The first picture I showed you at the beginning was the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, Chris Stewart. He's one of the most powerful people in real estate. I forgot to share this, but he's actually a good friend of mine. He's been to my house, and he's an awesome guy. And we were doing a project a few years ago to give CRM for all of the users, all the agents at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. And I asked him, I said, why is this so important for you? You know, you're so passionate about it. And he told me, because the real estate industry has failed our people. The real estate industry has failed us. We basically tell people to get their license, and then we drop them in the ocean and tell them to swim with the sharks. And we don't coach them, we don't train them, we don't give them tools or technology. They're kind of sink or swim. And there are so many single moms out there who don't have a choice, who want to be with their kids, who want to raise their families and still want to make money. And real estate gives them the opportunity. And I cannot fail them like they failed me. And to hear him open up like that, the minute he shared, then the rest of my sales cycle, all I was thinking about was that single mom. All I was thinking about was the people that he was trying to serve. And it made me so much more impactful when we were talking, because I knew I could and would help him help his people. So really get to that why. When you get to the truth, when you get to the why, you have yourself a sale. The other thing is just basic conversational skills. Listen, stay present, get curious, and dig deep. When they start opening up, really, if you don't understand something, ask to clarify, right? Ask them to elaborate. Ask them and really take an interest in what they're saying. The deeper you dig, the more insights you get, the more things that you can solve for, and the more you're going to have an opportunity to link your product or service to areas that you can help them with. But you got to get a lot of information to be able to identify where you can have the biggest impact. You always want to leave a little bit of time to discuss a mutual plan, right? So I try and leave 5-10 minutes to talk about what's next. How can we work together? If we can help you with what we talked about, which I'm confident we can, what does that look like, right? And remember, you're there to help them, not to sell them. And if you can't help them, and if they don't want or need help and they're not opening up, you know what? It's fine to walk away. The more people you talk to, the more executives, the better you're going to get at having these conversations, and the more large transformational opportunities you're going to find. Okay. So you might not kill it and get everyone to open up the first few times, but you know what? Practice makes perfect. And remember, you're there to help. And if they don't want help or need help, or, you know, you can't help them, it's okay. And they will respect and appreciate that even more if you tell them that. Last slide, and then we'll get to Q&A, is, you know, what are the keys to building lasting, strong, and authentic connections? And I'll tell you this, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So with executives, it's all about making them feel like they are a VIP, you know, building and playing into their egos, really showing them you care and making it all about them. So here's some tips. Number one, own the relationship yourself. With all my executives, I own the relationship. I know some companies say line up the executives, and that's fine to have executive sponsors lined up with their particular company sponsors too, but you want to make sure you have control in that relationship as well, right? The executive sponsorship is really just to make sure that they know the company has their back, in that if there's problems, that they have high level support, you know, in that company that's matched to their level. But in a day-to-day basis, you know, our executives aren't going to be calling them and trying to close deals. I'm the one who's going to be doing that. So I need to own the relationship. Authenticity matters. Be authentic, direct, and honest with them. Be interesting, not interested. Or I'm sorry, be interested, not interesting. Make sure you focus on them and not yourself. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, the way you said it would be done. You want to show people you care. If they ask to follow up or need items, get back to them, do what you say. I cannot even tell you how many times people just leave a meeting and they don't follow up the way that they said. And then their executives won't give them another shot because they didn't get back to them. Obviously, things like writing a thank you letter, those kind of things matter. Sending, holiday cards, gifts, that always makes people feel important. You want to follow up consistency. It takes 7 times on average to book a meeting, right? So just because someone doesn't get back to you doesn't mean they're not interested. It just means they're busy. Follow up. Try and get them out of the office. Some of the best meetings I've had are at the dinner table, eating some sushi, having a drink with the client, just getting them to open up. Executives like to get out of the office, invite them to lunch, invite them to dinner. That's the way to really get to know people. Get them on the golf course. I know it's COVID. It's difficult now. I haven't met with the client in almost a year, so I get that. But if you can, when we're able to, that does help. Texting relationships are key, right? I can text the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway today and he'll write back. He does not return my emails or pick up my calls, but he will text back and forth. We'll send pictures. So it just depends on the type of communication, because text is fast and easy and short. And that's how executives communicate a lot of times: short, direct, and fast. So text lends well. Show them the VIP experience. We have a Super Bowl event coming up where we're going to connect them with Terry Bradshaw and Emmett Smith. And I got my top executives lined up to go to that and got them invited. Whether or not they go, just get them on the list. Try and get them to know that they're important to your company. If your company does any kind of events, executive roundtables, customer panels, anything like that, get them on the list. Those things go a long way. Connect them with your execs so they know that your company is going to be there to support them when shit hits the fan or when they need something, or just having that connection outside of you is important. But remember, own the relationship. And last but not least, most importantly, you got to care about their success more than you do getting the sale. When you're focused on their success and driving business results and solving problems, the sales will come, I promise you. So focus on killing it with them. Last but not least, practice makes perfect. So as a key action in what we can do here, you can apply this. The worst thing you can do is hear this and say, that sounds good, and go back to business as usual. So I've given you a few steps on how to apply this to your own businesses. Start with 20. Don't start with, 100. Start with 20. Pick your top 10 accounts. If you only have 5 accounts, pick 4 people in each account, but you want to list about 20 target executives, and you want to target vertically based on what you sell. So if you're selling a product for sales executives, you want to meet with the CRO, the VP of sales, the VP of sales ops, et cetera. So it should be very simple to get your list of executives. That's step 1. Identify the ones you want to target. Step 2 is actually do that research. This is where it takes some time. Listen to those interviews, podcasts, or news articles, understand their company goals, and find an area or a customer story where you've actually helped in a similar manner that you can reference. And finally, use the template and actually start reaching out with the template that I just shared. Share your point of view and follow up 7 times. Watch what happens. You will book meetings. The more time you put in on the front end, the better results you're going to get on the back end. I hope this is super helpful for you guys. If you do want, I'm sorry I didn't give you as much time for Q&A. We'll take a few in the last few minutes, but if you do like the content, I send out a video newsletter every single week. You can go on my website, iankoniak.com, subscribe, or go to my YouTube, subscribe there. Every week I put out new videos. It's all about becoming the best you can be in sales. If you love the content, shoot me a DM. We can connect on LinkedIn or a recommendation. I love doing these kind of sessions. I am up at 1:45, session number 2, which is all about you are not your number, finding joy and fulfillment outside of just your sales performance. For those of you guys who are on the sales roller coaster and you feel like your identity is only good as your performance, this is definitely one you don't want to miss. So with that, let's pivot to Q&A. I think I can jump in. I'm going to stop sharing now. And I hope we are, oh wow, 183 people. All right, let me dive in the Q&A and start taking questions. So ask all these probing questions in all the meetings with the C-suite, or how do you drive the conversation to get all the info? Yeah, I do. I mean, these questions are for the C-suite. They basically, the way that I get them to open up is I usually show them that I've done some research, I share my point of view, And once they know that you're serious and you're committed and you actually have been putting in time and effort, typically they are, more open to it. So yes, this is really meant for having meetings with COOs, CEOs, VPs. I mean, it's not just the C-suite, SVP, EVP, VP level, very much so. In general, what advice do you have from your experience to establish credibility at the C-suite? I think credibility comes with experience. My advice is stay at your company for a while so you can get good, so you can know the products and services that you sell. The first year in any new company is a learning curve. You have to learn the value proposition. The key is spend time not understanding what all your products do and all the details. Spend time understanding the problems your products solve and become an expert on helping other customers solve problems. So what I do is I study customer stories. I study not what our product does, but the impact that it has on businesses, how businesses can transform based on the products and services that I sell. So I usually get that from watching YouTube videos, going to Dreamforce sessions, looking at other customer stories, so that makes me an expert. That establishes credibility because I can reference how we've helped other customers, because executives they don't want to be the first. They want to know that you've done it before, and they want to learn from other customers. Favorite book that you've read this past year? Gosh, that's a really good one. It's right over here. It's called The 12-Week Year. 12-Week Year, how to get more done in 12 weeks than most do in 1 year. It's by James Beard, and it's a wonderful book. It's all about execution, focus. I do it every week. It's helped me actually sell almost $1 million just in 12 weeks and get over plan after coming from paternity leave. So I couldn't attest to. There's a ton of good books. That I love. Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil, The Power of Habit, anything with productivity. There's so many good books that I've read in that I continue to read. I try and read one audiobook every single month. The one I'm reading right now is 5 Regrets of the Dying, which is really about living to your full potential as a human and not waiting to live the life that you want to live, essentially. And so, could you show the slide that had the action steps? Yes. Go ahead and take a screenshot of the slide, and I'll put it up again for a second so you can see it. So these are some action steps that you can take. Take action today. I like this popcorn style sharing. Give you one more second, grab a screenshot. And it's all about action. It's all about application. Remember that. Okay. How do you avoid analysis paralysis when researching the execs in the business? It's a good question. I look at financial statements, but I don't look at the financial statements in detail. Okay. What I look at is, what are they saying about their goals? What are they saying about their challenges and their risks? I'm looking at the business language. You need to be good at having business conversations is where I try and focus. So if you have a 200-page, one of my accounts has a 200-page annual report. I only read the first 20, 30 pages, and I highlighted kind of the key things. The key is, when you do your research, think about the things that you can help with. Where can you solve the problem, and kind of filter out, cross off the rest. If it's things that we don't touch, I don't even bother, right? If they're moving to cloud infrastructure, I know that's AWS. I know that's other Tor platforms, but potentially MuleSoft, our API platform, can help them make that migration easier from on-premise to cloud. So I'm kind of picking things that I know we can help with, but not getting caught in the minutia. How important are sales techniques as a spin, challenger, or do you prefer sales books? I think spin is great. I mean, situation, problem, impact, need, payoff. That's kind of what I was talking about with my discovery. Is what are you trying to do? Situation. What's the problem? What's stopping you from getting there? Impact. If you are able to solve that, how's that going to impact your business? Or what's the impact of that challenges? And then need, payoff. If you're able to solve that, how will that solve your business? It's a similar methodology. I think in general, you can't get stuck on the methodology. You can't get stuck on it has to be this way or that way. I think you got to find your own flow. You got to find your own rhythm. More important to me than practicing a specific sales technique is actually being authentic and taking an interest. That's why I'm doing this, frankly, is because a lot of those sales techniques focus on the technique and not the person you're talking to. At the end of the day, we're all humans. We all need to connect together, okay? We're all ultimately after the same things in life. So building that powerful connection is something you can only do by being authentic and not trying to follow a script or follow a technique. Just be yourself and take an interest, and that will pay massive dividends. We'll keep going. If we work for a startup and don't have a lot of great client stories yet, how would you reach out to C-executives then? I would do the same thing I did now. So I would just look at what they're trying to do and map your product and service. You just can't reference another customer. Say, here's how we help clients, and we're excited to partner with you and see what we can do. I mean, once you get that first or second marquee client, then you could start referencing them with other clients. But at the end of the day, you got to start somewhere. So that's really important. I think we're out of time. Exec outreach template. Where can you get the template? I can post that to my LinkedIn profile. Just shoot me a DM and I'll send it to you. Or if you want to see it one more time, I'll just share the exec outreach template. And we are out of time, but here is the outreach template that I use. It's right here. So warm, personal, compliment, share insight, identify their problem, where you help, and the outcome, ask time for meeting, and then make it easy to book the meeting. We are out of time, my friends. I appreciate everyone. Remember to ping me and follow me, and I will continue to send you guys as much content as I can. Good luck, good selling, close out the year strong. Appreciate everyone. I'll see you at 1:45. Join me for the next session. You won't be disappointed.